beyond the skies. You and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.
Okay, hello everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all to this webinar. Today's webinar is going to be really interesting, and it's something that all of us will really relate to on top tips for a successful interview. And we are really hoping that by the end of this session, you'll have the ability and the confidence to ace the interview. My name is Stella Serem. I am the Training and Learning Manager at the Global Giveback Circle, and I am also responsible for implementing the Baobab Platform Mentorship Program. I would like once again to welcome you all. I know there are so many participants who will join us along the way for this insightful conversation that we are all going to learn and to engage. And we are excited that we have an expert who is going to take us through the conversation. His name is Luis Yako. So I'll take a moment to introduce him, but just before I do that, still to remind us that being an interactive session, the chat is open for any questions and any clarifications that you need along the way. We also have a Q&A session towards the end. So if you have questions, you can as well preserve it to that session, and you'll have an opportunity to ask any question that you will have. So welcome, Luis, to today's webinar. We look forward to engaging with you. Luis is an anthropologist, writer, and a senior academic success advising coordinator at Arizona State University. He holds a BA in English from College of Languages, Baghdad University, an MA in English from Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, and a PhD in cultural anthropology from Duke University in North Carolina. Professionally, he is deeply committed to interacting with students in thoughtful and creative ways that guide them to reach their full potential, focus on setting goals, overcome obstacles, and achieve success in university and career readiness. As a social scientist, Luis' work focuses on higher education and has conducted extensive research at public and private universities in different countries. Luis has taught at and worked with American and international academic institutions and NGOs for many years. Such a beautiful profile. We look forward to interacting with you today. And over to you, Luis. Most welcome.
Thank you so much, Stella. I appreciate this kind introduction, and I appreciate you being with us also today. And welcome to all of you here. We are really happy that you are with us today. And I just want to make sure that you all are able to chat, write in chat. So can you please confirm somebody to test? Some of you just send hello or good morning, because we will be using chat for us to engage and interact with each other. So I know that we will also be using the Q&A to ask questions, and we will give you a lot of time to ask questions when we begin this webinar. So can somebody chat or send something in chat, please? Just to say good morning or hello, just as a test. Chat is disabled. Okay, let me see. How can we fix this? This is good to know. Best way to do it is, let me see. Thank you for letting us know. Let me see.
They are able to post in the question and advice channel, it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out the chat.
Can someone test again chat and see if it's working also, just in case?
Someone just said it's working now.
Is it working now? Perfect. Yes, perfect. All right, great. That's it. That's out of the way. So without further ado, let's begin because we have a lot of, really good stuff to do. And let me share my screen with you all as we begin. Okay, can you all see everything? I'm hoping here. This was the intro slide. And the first thing we're going to do is I would like to hear from you. And we have a small scenario that I would love to hear your answers. You can post your answers in chat to this question. As you see, your friend wants to share your LinkedIn profile in order to recommend you for a job at their company. So the question I have for you, is your LinkedIn profile ready for a potential employer to view? So let's, I want to hear from you in chat. Tell me, like, yes or no. It's ready, it's not ready. I'm going to give you a moment to respond. Yes, it's ready. Mine is not ready. Good. That's good. I want to hear the honest answers. That's perfect. Not ready. I don't know if I heard from everybody, but I'm happy to next slide. So I see a few of you. Some of you are ready, some are not. I can almost fairly say from the number of attendees that we have, like maybe 50-50 or something like that, which is totally fine. So thank you for answering openly. And so we move to the next slide to see what does that mean. So with that in mind, I'm going to begin to talk about the first most important tip about how to be ready for an interview. What will happen when I talk to you throughout this webinar, I'll be asking you some questions, you'll be answering in chat. Sometimes it's yes and no, and sometimes you'll answer me in 1 or 2 sentences, like a quick sort of narrative. But every time we talk about something as a question, we're gonna get into the tip to see how the tip connects to the question, to the poll that we asked. So the most important thing that you need to do to be ready for an interview, it's to be able to communicate. Many of you will say, well, that's such a broad thing. Communicate thoughtfully. What does it really mean? Especially that a lot of us, we hear the word good communication everywhere. Most of us, whatever job post you look at, wherever you go, you always hear communication. It's very important to communicate. But what does it really mean in the context of job applications or job interviews? Now, I put this big note right in front of you. It says your interview starts with the very first communication with your prospective employer. What that means, the very first contact, whatever that contact is with the potential employer, is extremely critical because it gives the first impression about who are you as a person, as a professional. It gives a full sort of impression about you, a very quick. And we also know that very often, like hiring, human resources or the hiring managers, they are so busy, not only in their work, but also busy looking at a lot of applications, a lot of applicants and people who apply for jobs, that they don't have the time to take the time to in-depth to look carefully through all of your CV to see all the good things, all the gems that you have. And so because of that, it's important that you try to keep your CV or your first communication with the employer very clear and very, I would say, as short as possible, so that they quickly get a glimpse of who you are. So that counts as communication, and it is really, really important. If they see your LinkedIn as a very first thing, they haven't even talked to you. And as you know, many people, I've heard from many people that somebody looked at my LinkedIn. I applied for a job and the employer or the manager, I saw that they looked at my LinkedIn. Well, what that means is that, yes, they're checking you out. They're looking at who you are. They're taking that very quick look to see, are you a person they would want to contact or begin an interview? So then communication continues all the way into, for example, how do you set up the interview and how do you interact with them in the interview? What kind of questions you ask? And as you see, as we talk about the other tips, and we're going to see how communication can apply to more than one area. So you could almost say that a good communication is critical in every step, whatever you do, and every other tip that I'm going to talk about. So I'm happy to talk more about communication, but I will let you ask any questions you have. If you have any questions, you can post them in the Q&A channel about them. So next thing, I have another question for you that I would love to hear from you. It says, you are invited for an interview next week. I want to hear you. What are the key steps to take to be prepared? So in your mind, what are the most important things you need to do to be prepared for the interview that you have next week? So let's hear from people. Please share in chat. We'll take a minute and two so that everybody begins to share. And don't forget to keep posting your questions in the Q&A channel for the end when we have time to ask questions. Read about the company. Very good. I love that. Research the company. Perfect. I love it. Very good. Very, very good. Yeah. What else? Yes, read the job description. Very good. Yes. Although that you would have done before even applying, because without a careful reading of the job description, it will affect maybe negatively how you write a cover letter. So that's another thing to remember. But I would say it's a good point, because rereading the job description can remind you exactly what they want and sort of freshen your mind about how to talk in the interview. What are the things that are important for the hiring manager or for them, for the hiring committee, whatever the situation is. Okay, so read about the company, find out the questions commonly asked in an interview. Very good. Excellent. Get acquainted with your role and its expectations. Excellent. And I want to also say this is a great point, but also to remind you all that sometimes the job posts, the original job advertisement, in many cases, it's not, it does not fully give you all the information you need about what are the expectations. And therefore, you need to listen carefully in the interview about what they say, because they can give you new clues, new ideas about what is expected, and also have questions to ask to make sure that you fully understand certain things that were not clear enough in the job post. When it is next week, for instance, for competency-based interview, you search about key questions on YouTube. That's good. It's always good to go look for, what articles and videos are there to help you prepare based on the job description. Very good point. Great. So I see that most of you answered. Happy to read all these wonderful answers. They're all to the point. Very, very useful answers. So glad to see that you all are thinking about it this way. We'll move to the next step, which I hope will show you. As you see, many of you answered already. Do your research. Researching like the job as preparation for a job interview is critical, and it has more than one layer. For example, at the very beginning, before you apply for the job, you have to really research the company carefully. You have to look at, every company has what they call about us, about the company, and you read about their mission, their vision, their values, what do they do. And I recommend you read with a critical eye and look. That is not enough as part of research, because let's be super honest, every company will showcase their best part. They'll show their best things, right? And so for us, as people wanting to get employed there or hoping to get employed there, we have to do more extensive research. I recommend that you look at other places where the company's name has come up in. And of course, they have to be legitimate websites or legitimate resources and sources to see some of their achievements, their engagement with the world, with the public, with the communities in which they live. Sometimes companies are very big, have more than one branch. And here in the US, we have several websites where people, whether current or former employees, go and write a lot of, share a lot of experiences and feedback about how was their working experience for a certain employer. Now, Indeed.com, and Indeed exists in multiple countries. Like we have Indeed in several countries, like Indeed in Europe and in the Middle East, in Africa, etc. So they have places for reviews for every employer where you could go and read. There's another very useful website called Glassdoor. It's very useful to give you a very good overview of the company, the experiences. Now, I should remember, like Google reviews. If you go to a restaurant and see reviews on a restaurant, it doesn't mean every review is true. It doesn't mean everything is precise. And again, you have to use your critical skills to read the reviews against the grain to make sure that you get the useful points and disregard what you think might be exaggeration or not a very helpful point. We have to be very wise and careful in how we read reviews as well. And quite honestly, as many of you might know, sometimes a place could have very good reviews and may not be a good restaurant to eat at, right? Sometimes you see, reviews could be in the middle, but then some of these reviews gives you really good clues about what to expect, and they might change your opinion even favorably for the employer. So do your research carefully. In the company website, as mentioned, in places where employees go and share experiences. And of course, that also includes every part of the company itself. Like, what do they do exactly? Who are their partners? Who are their, sometimes even who funds them? They have sometimes funding partners, and see, do they align with what you like to do, with your qualifications, but more importantly, with your personal mission statement, what you want in life, the values that you believe in as well. So all this should be part of the research. So not to spend way too much time on this again, but I will open this for any other questions you may have. Feel free to ask them in the Q&A and we can talk more about it, how to do that research. But I'm glad that you all seem to be aware of that. Okay, another question for you, my friends. What does it mean to be yourself in an interview? I'm sure many of you have heard this over and over, like, the best thing is to be yourself. Be yourself. You've heard it a lot. But what does it? So I would love to hear from you in chat if you could comment with a few words, like a sentence or two, to tell me from your perspective, from your experience, what does it mean to be yourself? Or what do they mean when they say be yourself? Either or. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And now I'm going back to chat, looking at it while waiting for you to answer, to see if I missed anything. For instance, STAR technique. STAR technique is very good. I'm so glad you mentioned it. Those of you who are not aware of it, the STAR technique is very, very good to have, in terms of how to be prepared to competency-based questions. And while waiting for your answer, I would like to remind you that Boabab has courses that are designed for helping you prepare for interviews, write the best cover letters that make you stand out, and resumes. So there are courses that we have on Boabab that are extremely important and helpful for help you prepare to stand out from among a big number of applicants. So I highly recommend it, if you haven't done so, to register in these courses. So I'm beginning to look at the answers we're getting about what does it mean to be yourself. Talk naturally, answer questions honestly. Wonderful. I love that. We'll wait for another minute or so to see what everyone else is saying. To feel comfortable in your speech and be polite. Very good. I love it. it definitely, I think, you know, it is what it says, to be yourself, to be comfortable, to be very genuine, to be very sincere. There are other points that I will talk about after I finish this poll, after I hear from you, and we can talk more about some, let's call them a bit tricky areas. Any other thoughts? What does it mean to be yourself? I know it takes a bit of time to type, so that's totally fine. It means to describe your qualifications and experience without lying and being here and now. Very good. Very good. Actually, I love that you mentioned lying, because it happens a lot, believe it or not. And not to be always, like, not to be very harsh. It could be lying, pure lying, of course, but also sometimes what they call misrepresenting yourself, trying to make yourself look more than you are, or have done more than you should, just to get the job. And that happens, and it has a lot of bad consequences. We can talk about them. And you know, when we are not ourselves, when we exaggerate our experience, when we are not open and honest about it, what could happen is that they will find out, especially when moments, sometimes very early on the job, come where the thing we lied about is needed, and we're not able to deliver, we're not able to do the job. And then the professional world is very big, but also because of technology and communication and how people move around, it's smaller than we think in some ways. Just, you know, like the idea that, you know, it's very easy to find out sometimes, you know. There's a saying that I really like. They say lies have a very short life. Like, basically, lies are short-lived, and it means they die very quickly, and they discover very quickly. So it is really, it does a great professional harm for people to find out that you misrepresented yourself, or, you know, you were not truthful about something. So with that, I'm glad you all answered. It's really good answers. And if you have more thoughts, please share in chat, and then questions and Q&A at any time while we're talking. And so I'm going to move to the next one. And I'm going to talk more after this point. I'll talk about being authentic, which is part of being yourself. The very first thing about being yourself, actually, it means to be professional, but being your professional self. What that means, as some of you noted in the answers, every detail matters, every little thing matters. So that's why you have to be sincere and open and honest, no lying, no exaggerating, and no misrepresenting, right? But also the way you conduct yourself, you answer the questions to the best way you can, and acknowledge what you know and what you still don't know, and there's an area to grow. And sometimes people lie or exaggerate their professional knowledge, for example, because they're afraid of rejection, or they think, oh, if they know I don't know this, they may not take me, right? But it's much better for them not to take you for who you are than to take you for who you are not, because that will eventually, like, if you are your best self, your genuine self, then they know what they're getting, and they know how to nurture you and help you grow as a person. But the other way around might actually have a disastrous effect, right? So there's that part. Being professional also means, I want to remind people, especially people who are afraid. They say, oh, will they take me, or will I look good enough if I don't say this, or if I don't show that I have this? Well, it's not a good idea to have the mindset that if you go to the job or have a job interview, then you have to be perfect. You have to know everything so that you get the job. Every employer, every hiring manager, they know when they are interviewing people, especially if you're a junior or beginning your professional life, they know that you don't know everything. But they decided to interview you because what you know, what you have demonstrated on your resume, assuming it's accurate, is very appealing to them. It's something they feel is a great contribution already. So I want you to always remember, and this is a very good thing to remember, the very fact that they invited you for an interview, it means that they are seeing a lot of hope and promise in you. So they're believing that you have enough to begin with. Now, the interview is a way to and cover letter, and that you have the things that you say you have. But also, if there are areas where you're not as strong and areas where you think you don't have enough that are needed in a job, it is totally fine to somehow express it and use your own words to show that you're willing to improve in this area. Or something like, I'm actually really interested in this job because it will also help me grow in the areas X, Y, and Z. And these would be the areas that you are not as strong about, because every job is a two-sided street. Is that for you to give something to the employer, and then the employer has to give you something back. If you only go knowing everything, doing a great job, then you're not learning anything. Maybe you need to be in another job. But if you go give, let's say, 80% that you can bring is extremely important, then the employer at least can give you a 20% of learning experience. And that includes learning new skills, acquiring new professional experience, even getting you some qualifications sometimes, because employers sometimes have what they call professional development, and they help you to, use some funding in some cases to grow in an area, like take a course or do attend workshops or conferences. It depends on the situation. So I want to simply make this very easy for you and basically stress-free by reminding you that you need to enter every interview with the mindset of, I can give, but I also would like to acquire certain skills and take back what being professional means. It's you go professionally, show what you know and where you can grow. And of course, be attentive to the conversation and communicate politely and well and be your best self. And before moving to the next slide, I just want to make sure that it's about chat. Controlling well your own verbal communication and body language. Very good. I love that somebody mentioned body language. Remember, the very first tip was body language, was communication. And we know from research that a big portion of communication between people, including people in interviews, of course, is not done through verbal communication. Sometimes there are many situations when the biggest portion of the communication happens through body language, through certain cues that you have to be aware of other than the verbal. So that's why it's really great to be attentive to the body language, as you say here, and also what they call to have emotional intelligence, which means to be aware about how people feel, how they react to certain ideas, to certain things, or to you as a person, or to other people. Sometimes people will answer you in an interview for a question you have. It might be a very diplomatic answer, but it could, if you have the intelligence to read behind the lines, it could give you a clue of what to expect, for better or worse, either way. Sometimes when you are interviewing, you can tell from the body language of certain interviewers that they, there's something that is not quite right, or they're not happy maybe in what they're doing themselves. So being attentive, being able to read the body language is a very important skill to have. Now, although I just said this, I also want to warn you not to overread. And I've had a lot of people and students chat with me over the time, people who have interviews, and this is a real story. Example, one person I know applied for a number of jobs, and the job that they really liked, they felt that the interviewers were very cold and not reacting so much. The eye contact was very neutral. And so the other job, which was their second option, they also interviewed for, the interviewers were very clearly liking the person. They were very happy and showing in their eye contact and all of that. And then another job, which was the third on their list, like the third preference, the interviewers were also very happy and nice, but the person wasn't sure if that was the right fit. Now, what I told them, I do not overread the clue. The hiring committee, they are required to be professional from their side, by not giving you any signs, to give you mixed messages, not that they love you or hate you, but be neutral. Unfortunately, some people are not very good of being neutral. They can come across as unfriendly or not wanting you. And that can happen. It all depends on the person. It's very hard to determine or to have a recipe for this. There's no one way to do this. And so what I recommend is that you do not exaggerate and do not dwell on it. That just because people were neutral or not smiling too much with you or not friendly, just so that they didn't like you. It could be that they really like you, but they also don't want to mislead you in any way, because maybe they have other candidates to interview. Maybe they really like you, but they're waiting for others and see how things will go. So going back to my friend's scenario, the person who was consulting me on the while they were interviewing, from the 3 jobs in preference, yeah, like remember, number 1, their favorite, number 2, second favorite, 3, third favorite. They actually got the first offer from number 2, people who they really liked, and the person, my friend, liked the job. They got an offer. So of course, here we can say in this case, there isn't much surprise. They could tell they liked them. They liked my friend, and my friend likes the job, and so there was an offer. In the third case, where they were very friendly, my friend did not get an offer. And then the first one, the first preference, the first favorite job was the last one to come back to hear from, and they got an offer. And that's exactly the job that they wanted. So I'm giving you this case of 3 examples, 3 interviews, and to show you that we cannot make those assumptions. We can be, to a certain extent, we can try to read and be intelligent. At the end of the day, the most important question you should ask when you interview, you should not only let them interview you, but you also interview them, the employer, in your head. And you can interview them by seeing all kinds of things and clues and what kind of questions do they ask? Do they ask smart questions? Do they ask questions that make you feel that you really are going to go there to make a difference and that you're going to contribute? They value you as a person who brings contribution. So you can interview them in your head. And then the second way of interviewing them, asking them questions at the end. So all of that could be very helpful. Moving to the next slide. And we talked about this already while some of you were answering about being authentic, which simply means to let your passion shine and be yourself. And many of you, I'm very happy to see in the chat that you're aware of this. But there's one more side of this that I would like to share with you. I've seen many cases, and many people think that being authentic or being yourself means that you can say whatever you want. In professional settings, especially in an interview, being yourself does not necessarily mean to being very personal. It's not about your favorite food or, excuse me, it's not necessarily, your most sort of, as like your favorite food or what you do for a hobby, even though that might come sometimes, but being yourself in an interview means being your professional self, and how you professionally and socially as a person is the right fit for the job, company and its culture, and for the team that is interviewing you, that eventually you'll be working with. And to be yourself means to show them how the self that you have as a full, complete self, professionally and socially, is a right fit for the company and the culture and the team. And of course, in that regard, in that sense, being yourself should still be measured professionally. You should still be professional while yourself. And I hope that's not very confusing, but if you have questions about what that means more, or you have more, let's say, ideas, please do share them. But being yourself doesn't mean just being totally like friendly all over the place, saying whatever. That's not exactly what it means. It means showing how you as a person, as a full person, including like how the professional and the personal in you connect together to make contribution to the company and to fit within the culture. So I hope that's clear. and happy to hear more if you have questions. Now back to you. This is a yes, no. So it's a very easy one, I hope, to answer in chat. If you could tell me, should you prepare questions in advance of an interview? I kind of cheated and almost gave you the answer to this one, but I still want to hear from you. Yes, no. Do you think you should have questions at the end of your interview to be prepared in advance before you go to the interview? Yes, yes, very good. So far I heard, yes, you should. Very good. Excellent. Great. So as you see, this is almost very straightforward. And of course, we talked already about a lot of things that I think you all got the idea that it is really important to have questions. But this is one of the top tips for being prepared for an interview. So of course, the answer is yes, you should have questions, even if you end up not asking them, because sometimes you cannot control how the interview goes. And I've been in situations where there was only like 30 seconds left for me to ask a question, and then I had like 3 questions. I had to ask the one that has the shortest answer, because they need to go, and you need to be also part of being professional is to respect the time, right? So having questions is a great idea, and then asking them in the first interview or the second interview, that's a strategy. So you have to have a list of questions, and the questions should not only be logistical. That's what I want to talk more about. So the answer is yes, and what you ask can really influence the outcome of the interview. So then you have to think about the questions that you need to have as logistical questions. I would say something like content questions. It means related to the actual work that you will do. And sometimes you can have bigger questions, but those bigger questions shouldn't be too big. For example, the strategy, the overall strategy of the unit or the company, the goals, even the challenges of where they are. And you can frame it in a way, well, I'm interested about what kind of challenges you are tackling right now, in which I could, or my role could contribute, something like that. But be strategic in asking your questions, whatever they are, depending on where you are in the interview. So for some employers will have 3 interviews. Some will have 1 interview, by phone or virtual. Nowadays, virtual interviews, it's a common thing. You'll be doing a virtual interview like me talking to you right now. And then sometimes you'll have the in-person interview. And there are cases for remote jobs where you don't have any in-person interviews. You have all your interviews virtually, and then you get hired. In fact, for my current job with Arizona State University, I did not go on site for an interview. I was interviewed 2 or 3 times and took some tests, but I did not go in person. And, I've been doing this job for the last 5 years. It all depends on the kind of job. Going back to your questions have to be very strategic when to ask them. For example, questions about salary in the first telephone interview it's not a good idea, because ask you, what is your salary expectations? It's not the right time to ask immediately about the salary, because the first interview tends to be an interview to check your qualifications, to check as a professional. And you could think of it as a screening, but as an initial sort of entrance into the second step of seeing whether you're going to make the second list or the short list of the people they really like. So it's not quite the time to talk about the salary. As I said, unless they bring it up. And if they do, then there are different ways to answer that. And if you guys have questions about how to answer salary questions, feel free to the Q&A, because that's a whole different territory. But I'm trying to focus more on the questions, how and when to ask them. I think in the view, it's very wise to focus on questions related to the job, to the company, what you do. And the more your questions are not cliche, taken from, like videos or articles online about what to ask, the better it is going to be for you. By that, I mean, I'm not saying you should neglect the advice you read online in an article or YouTube video about how to prepare, how to ask questions. They could be useful. Them copy, paste. Try to listen and learn from them, but then look at the job that you're applying for and look at yourself and say, what do I really need to know about this job that will really help me, not only to do well in the job, but maybe to prepare for the second interview? So this is one very useful question you could ask yourself. Because the second interview or the third interview, they become more intense, or let's not, if intense is it's a big word, you can also say in-depth. I've been in interviews where I'm a finalist, where you have 3 hours or 4 hours meeting different people and talking in details about the job. In that interview, you would want to be very know exactly, your things, your expertise, your skills, and what they do. But sometimes to prepare for that, you can ask questions from the first interview about the company, about the job, that could help you prepare for that, right? So be strategic, have questions, and definitely do not only have logistical questions about when will I hear from you next. And the reason why I encourage you to not only have logistical questions is there are 2 reasons. The first one, most of the time, logistical questions get answered by the interviewer before you even ask them. They'll say, well, thank you very much. It was great to have you here. The next time we'll be in touch within 2 weeks and you'll be hearing from us, etc., etc. They give it to you before you answer sometimes. Now, the second thing, in your first interview, you don't want to show that you only have the cliche logistical questions. You want to show them you are interested in itself, and therefore you have questions about the job. So I hope that's something that you all remember. And the other takeaway from this big tip is that be strategic in asking the right questions in the right interview round, whether it's the first interview, second, or even third, right? And sometimes some jobs will have tests that you have to finish, some of them have personality tests, and of course that's already done separately. It's not an interview. It's like you go and take the test. It depends on the job. But be very careful with questions. Do have questions, and make sure that you don't only have logistical questions. So with that, my dear friends, now it's all yours for whatever time we have left, and I'm going to do my best to actually, to cover everything that you have. I'm looking at a lot of chat that we have. I'm just making sure that I didn't miss anything. By the way, as you see, we have something going on this coming Friday about salary negotiation. So this is a perfect moment, actually, to encourage you to attend our webinar. We have this coming Friday a webinar talking about being smart in negotiating your salary. And quite frankly, this is something I myself had to learn, to really learn how to negotiate, because I come from a culture where it's a little bit difficult to talk about money. We are raised to think, oh, money is not everything, or be careful how you talk about it sometimes, or it's a little embarrassing, right? But then work is work, and being professional is being professional. And when there is a moment to discuss and talk about salary, you do need to get what you're worth. You do need to get something fair and something equal to others. You do deserve it. When you're coming to a final round and you're going to almost get an offer, right? And they bring it up, you need to know how to talk about it, right? So that's a perfect moment for us to talk. So let me go to the questions. I'm going to open it for questions. Have any other thoughts? Excuse me.
I'm just checking to see if there are questions on the Q&A. I can't see any questions. To the participants, please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question. This is your time.
Yes, if you have questions, please let us know. We'll give it a moment to see if anybody has a question. And I do hope that these tips were helpful, and the information that was offered was something that just made you think again about certain things as you prepare for your career.
Yes, I don't see any hands up. Okay, so maybe also to take a moment.
I see one hand up.
Okay.
Vera, you have a question?
Okay, I can see Vera. Let me just try and see if I can unmute. Yes, I've allowed her to talk. Please go ahead and ask your question. Vera?
Hello, am I heard?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yes. Please, regarding the point on being yourself and be as authentic as you are.
Mhm.
And then you spoke about making eye contact, trying to
Very
get
good question.
really clear. Is it that you're supposed to really like look straight to their eyes, or
Yes, I love that. Can you all hear me well? Stella, am I being heard well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I love that you asked the question about the eye contact. It's a very, very good question. And I guess the anthropologist in me will have to talk a little bit about this. I think it depends on the culture. And that's why knowing the culture of the interviewer and the company matters, but also the culture in which you are working. And I know in some cultures, depending on the power relations, sometimes if the son or the daughter look into the father's eyes, it's considered rude. You have not to look at them and listen, right? And sometimes, but there are other cultures where if you don't look or do the eye contact, then you're considered rude. It's almost the opposite, right? So we have the, and for example, when I was growing up in the Middle East, looking at the teacher was considered like a little rude. Like, you don't just look like this, you have to show respect and kind of avoid eye contact. And if you do eye contact, it has to be very limited and very kind and respectful and so on. So the answer depends on the culture in which you are operating and what are the norms of that culture. And we have to be very aware of that. And if I can speak, for example, for example, Europe and North America, the United States particularly, it is considered very good to do eye contact because you want to show them you're engaged. It's a form of engaging, saying, I'm with you, I'm hearing you, and I'm talking with you. So that is not considered rude. And if you find yourself, for example, interviewing for a company, let's say is American or French or whatever, right? A company that you want to work with, then you should be making eye contact. If you're interviewing for like a local employer, I don't know the exact norms in every country, but as I said, I know that eye contact has different cultural norms. Then you would abide by the norms that the culture, finds respectful. It's as simple as that. So of the company or the people you are going to work with, and sometimes we have care of that, and of course that applies to them also. I think increasingly a lot of sort of international companies or NGOs are becoming more and more aware that people have different ways of talking and doing and expressing and even writing sometimes. For example, some languages we are more like some languages expressive and say more details. Others are more to the point. I remember, for example, comparing the languages that I know, for example, getting emails in English at work, they seemed very short. And in my head, I'm like, oh, they are so cold and rude. What is this? They will just say done, or just without hi. Is this done? Is this finished? So to me, that was shocking at the time. But then I learned over the years that there's a specific culture, like people can be much in a hurry, or they say hi once in the first email, and then after that, it's all very direct talk. Did you finish this one? Well, this is due on Thursday. Let's do it. Like hi was once and it's done. So like it all depends on the culture, and being aware of it is a very good idea to do that. I also see another question here, Stella, I think in chat.
Yes, I can see a question on the chat. Tell us about yourself. Can you please provide different ways and content of answer you are supposed to provide. I know our time is running out, but do you want to take this quickly?
Yes, I will take it. It's a really good question. And remember when we said about asking questions or answering questions, tell us about yourself is a common question, and people find it difficult because what do you say, right? And also questions like, where do you find yourself in 5 years and all of that? Like, how do I answer that, right? Tell us about yourself. And then the other one that's hard, tell us about your weaknesses. Oh, what do I say? So tell us about yourself basically means, who are you? Again, as I was saying, when I was talking about who are you as a professional and as a person, tell us, like, for example, I'm an anthropologist. I researched this. I care deeply about this. I've worked in this area because for me, I really care about these values and I care about helping these people. And I recently, I took 3 courses in this skill because I've learned from experience that having these skills can be very helpful in doing this and that. I care deeply about my community. Now, you notice this is not about my qualification or degrees. I'm talking about some of my values also, right? So that's what telling about yourself is, the professional and the personal, and how the personal is part or feeds the professional in you, and how the professional is informed and nurtured by what kind of person you are. That back and forth, right? So you are being personal, but personal to the extent of showing them why you do the things you do, why you care about the things you care. You see the example I gave you, I'm an anthropologist. I took these courses because I care about this. I volunteered recently. And by the way, this is actually true. It happened for me. I mean, I've done it for real. I volunteered to teach immigrants English from different countries from all over the world because I really love it when people communicate and it helps them to grow and get better jobs when they're able to. So I decided to volunteer some time to teach English, etc. So this is all showing them as a person what skills you have and what values you have and what do you do with them, how you serve yourself, your profession, and your community. That's what it means. And same thing with questions like, what are your weaknesses? You're not going to sit and say, well, just try to make it look good. That's cliche. Don't just sit there and say, well, my weakness is I love working too much. I mean, that's a very typical. They will know that you got that from online advice. What they mean by what are your weaknesses is, what are areas that I really care about and I think are important and I want to grow more in, or something that I want to do, but I still haven't had the time and the resources to do, and then I'm looking forward to learning. So you can always package it or frame it. I don't like the word packaging. Framing is a better word. Frame it as an area where you want to get better and improve and learn more. And there's nothing wrong to tell anybody, not even an employer, that there's an area or growth that you want to do. And honestly, when people see that, they see all of us have areas to learn and grow. And so to say it, they will immediately say, well, this person is very genuine and authentic. And I love that about them. I mean, that they are doing this. So I hope that answers the question. But these, what seem to be the big common questions that are scary, they're not as scary as we might think. It's just finding the way to answer them authentically and professionally. And this is why I focused a lot on this. If you remember, we talked a lot about professional, authentic, that dance back and forth. Okay. And so I hope this was helpful to everybody. I'm grateful you are here with us today. And we hope to see you more in future webinars. I'll be giving more webinars like this in the coming months. And we will have a post-webinar survey in which I would love for you to take and tell us how was this webinar, what did you think, areas of improvement, or things that we could do more in the future that are important for you. Because we like to design webinars to serve you from what you think is important for you. So there will be a post-survey webinar sent to you for your feedback. And we have future webinars continuing about how to plan your career and professional life successfully and consider things that I'll be doing definitely 2 or 3 in the next few months. So I encourage you to come. I hope that will be something. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really good to have you with us. I'm so happy. And back to Stella. Yeah.
I have also posted the link to the mentorship application. We are currently in our third cycle of mentorship for recruitment for the Baobab Platform Mentorship Program. If you would like to be part of this journey, with all this professional and personal growth happening, please feel free to save that link, click on it, and submit your application. Also, you can look at the Baobab platform for the future events that are constantly posted there, whether it's webinars or the relevant events that will really be helpful to you. Thank you so much. I thank you so much, Louise, for the time that you have taken here to educate us and to empower us on the top tips for a successful interview. Please remember the post-webinar survey. We will really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much, everyone, and we appreciate that you are here with us today.
Thank you all. Take care and see you soon.